Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. I went ahead and did my eye makeup off camera just so we could go ahead and get that out of the way and kind of focus on a little bit more of the spooky side of makeup. Now with today being the first video, I figured we could keep the gore a little bit light, not do too much. So grab a drink, maybe grab a snack, and let's get started. Today we're going to talk about a pretty famous case. A lot of you guys probably have heard of it, even watched the movie. They've made quite a few movies and books. And it's kind of the best of both worlds. It has some true crime and also some spooky paranormal stuff. Let's talk about 108 Ocean Avenue. It is most commonly known as the Amityville Horror House. Horror House. The Amityville case. So we have Louise and Ronald Sr., 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, 9-year-old John Matthew, and 23-year-old Ronald Jr., and we'll talk a little bit more about him. On November 13th of 1974, Ronald Jr. decides that he is going to grab a rifle, and he walks into his parents' room and he fires 2 shots into each of his parents. He shoots his parents twice, and then he proceeds to walk into his siblings' rooms and shoots 1 shot into each of his siblings. So the parents were shot twice, his siblings were only shot once each. And one thing that I found a little bit interesting about this is that each of the family members that he shot were lying face down in their beds. So it's almost like no one heard any commotion, no one heard the shots and got up to investigate and see what the noise was. And even when the neighbors were questioned by the police, they said that they heard no gunshots. The only thing that they heard were dogs barking. So Ronald Jr., he's going to go to work. He's trying to figure out an alibi here, how he can sell this to the police. After work, he runs into a local bar. He runs in screaming, shouting that his family's been murdered. To get down on your neck. Don't forget to blend your neck. That's important. So Ronald Jr. runs into this bar screaming that his family's been murdered, that he needs help. So the police come to the home, of course, discover all these dead bodies. And Ronald lets them know that he thinks it is the work of a hitman or the mafia. And initially, police believe him, and he's only taken into police custody for his own protection because his whole family's dead. They figure he's next. Once he's at the police station, they start to question him and realize that his timeline really isn't adding up. Some things are just kind of off, and he's really chatty, super chatty, not very emotional, just kind of acting out of the norm for someone who just lost their entire family. Ronald's story changed a lot. It went from the mafia to someone that he knew that was really close to the family, that he did it. And eventually he told the police that the voices of the house, the evil voices of the house, made him shoot and kill his family. So because of this, they bring in a psychiatrist. He is actually diagnosed with a personality disorder. Of course, they go for the insanity plea. This does not hold up in court. The jury, they kind of know that he's full of it. Ronald Jr. was charged and was sentenced 6 consecutive life sentences for killing his whole family. So we're going to fast forward only 13 months. 13 months, you guys. I feel like this family, they were not in the ground long enough for someone to be moving into that murder house. 13 months later, we are introduced to the Lutz family, George and Kathy Lutz, and they have 3 children together. Now, when George and Kathy are looking for a home, they have a budget of around $30,000 to $50,000, but they really just kind of fell in love with this home. They decided that they could look past the murder, they could look past the price, and just make it work because this is a beautiful home. It was actually a waterfront property. It had a boathouse, a full finished basement, a pool. And not to mention, it was very big. It was 4,000 square feet. It was on the market for only $80,000. So George and Kathy, they're like, okay, this is it. We're going to make it work. We're going to get this house. And they do. The Lutz family decided that it might be a good idea to bring in a priest to bless the home. They call Father Ralph, a Catholic priest, over to bless the home. On the day that Father Ralph comes over to bless the house, the family, they're outside unloading a moving truck. So Father Ralph is in the house all by himself, and he hears a voice. He said it was a really low, deep voice telling him to get out. And Father Ralph actually said that he was slapped by something that he couldn't see. But Father Ralph, being the professional that he is, he just decided, we're going to finish this blessing and then I'm going to get the hell out. He goes back outside and lets the family know, hey, there's something super off about that room in there. I wouldn't let anyone sleep in there. Reports from Father Ralph said that once he tried to leave the home, he noticed his hands were really blistered and that his car was acting super weird. His radio was turning on and off by itself. His wipers were going crazy. Right away, things really start happening for this poor family. Kathy and George Lutz said that green slime would ooze from the walls and the keyholes in the doors. Random black stains would show up on the walls, on the countertops. They heard a lot of unexplained noises and had a lot of really weird smells. And a lot of times in the paranormal world, strange smells, really off bad smells, kind of sulfur smells, usually means a more evil spirit, not a good one. So from there, stuff just continued to escalate. They said that doors would fly off hinges and windows would just shatter out of nowhere. That would have been it for me. I love paranormal stuff, but no, I'd have been out. Kathy Lutz said that she got scratched often and she would hear her name being called. Once she said that she was in the kitchen and she had a knife fly off the counter towards her. George Lutz, I would say, got the worst of it from the house because not only did he experience his own paranormal stuff, but his personality really started to change. He started waking up at 3 a.m. every morning. Keep in mind that's around the time that Ronald Jr. shot his family just 13 months prior. On one instance of George waking up at 3 a.m., he said that he heard a marching band downstairs in the living room. So, of course, he goes down, tries to investigate to see if there's a marching band in his living room. But there was no marching band, but all of the furniture had been slid to one side of the room, and the rug was rolled up like these ghosts were ready to have a rager. The youngest child of the Lutz family started to let her parents know that she had an imaginary friend. Now, of course, her parents don't think much about this. She's young, and what young kids don't have imaginary friends. So they kind of play it off, but she lets them know that sometimes she gets really scared of this imaginary friend because the friend shows up as an evil pig. And the father, George Lutz, he actually said that he saw this pig. He was out working in the yard, chopping some wood, and he looked up to his youngest daughter standing at her window, but standing behind her was a pig with glowing red eyes. Now, because of all this spooky stuff like seeing his wife levitate off the bed, all the strange smells, the strange noises, the things that they were seeing and hearing, it was all just too much. So the family, they only stayed in the house for 28 days. And not only did this family leave, they left quick. They left so quickly that they left all of their belongings behind. I tried to do a little bit of digging around to see if I could figure out kind of what was the last straw for them. And I really didn't find much. I did see that it possibly could have been because George Lutz started to get physical with the family, that the voices maybe got to him too. Once the Lutz family moved out, a lot of paranormal investigators heard their story and decided they wanted to go inside of the house and investigate. A few others being Ed and Lorraine Warren. Lorraine said that as soon as she walked into the house, she could feel that something was off. She just felt awful. She said that there was a lot of pressure on her chest while she was walking up the stairs. I honestly was surprised. I couldn't find much on what they got inside of the house. I know that they were able to get some spooky pictures, some EVPs. Lorraine herself was quoted saying that the house was straight from the bowels of the earth. Y'all, when in doubt, if you don't like it, just cover it up with some fake blood and all is well. I'm just going to put on a quick lip and we can get back to the story. Lorraine also said that the house was the closest thing to hell that she would ever get. From what I could find on the interweb, as of 2020, a family does live in the house. And I'd be really interested to see if they're having any paranormal stuff going on. Moral of the story, guys, don't move into a home where the previous family were all murdered in their sleep. It's probably not a good idea. Here we have the final spooky look. Just in a simple little puncture wound. You guys let me know any stories that you would like me to go more in depth in. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you all next time.